Hi everyone, in this episode I will show you how to make a versatile miter saw and tapering crosscut sled for your table saw. This sled will be very helpful for making accurate mitered cuts for picture frames and tapered table legs. I will use my standard table saw miter gauge track as the miter crosscut sled runner. You can use a hardwood runners instead if you like, but as I will be using my Incra miter gauge instead of the standard one that comes with the table saw, I can utilize this last one parts for this build. I began by cutting the sled main sheet from laminated plywood for better durability. As I said, the Incra miter gauge will be the main part of this build, as it can give repeatability and accuracy in every cut. As this track has a pin pre-installed in it, I decided to use it to my advantage to determine the exact location for the drill holes. I will use the combination square to ensure that the track is parallel to the sled edge. Then I will mark the drill hole locations with the drill bit. I mark the thickness of the plywood on the drill bit using masking tape to avoid blowing out the laminate on the other side. After installing the sled runners, it is time to make the sled trimming cut. This is my Incra 1000 SE miter gauge, which will be mounted on the sled to make the miter cuts. I am measuring the width of the miter gauge track to determine the dado stacks that are required to make the exact dado groove in the sled. This is a tight fit, yet it is important to have a zero play here to avoid inaccurate cuts later on. I'm gluing small pieces of wood in the front and the back side of the dado groove to prevent the miter gauge runner from moving when pushing or pulling back the sled. I'll be using the barrel nut type screws to attach the toggle clamps for additional strength. They are also called the sex bolt for some reason. I will make the second runner from hardwood, as I don't have another option this time. Hardwood runners work just fine if your workshop is temperature controlled. If it's not, then you might face an issue due to changes in humidity in different seasons. As the wood starts to lose humidity or gain some, it might change its shape and you may end up with a too tight or too loose runner. Now once the runner is attached to the off-cut sled, it's time to make the trimming cut. I'm adding a T-track to allow for the T-track clamps to be used on the off-cut sled to be able to use it as a tapering sled. Attaching a handle to the sled will give you better control when pushing and pulling the sled during the cutting action. I will be using the handle that came with the table saw miter gauge. Here's another use for the same toggle clamps jig that I have used on the tapering sled. I just need some additional holes on the sled sheet to enable the toggle clamps to serve both clamping jobs on the tapering sled and the miter sled. To easily test the 45-degree miter cut, simply flip the small piece and reattach it to the other piece at 90 degrees angle. Then use a good square to check the squareness. If the cut is exactly at 45 degrees, then the square should read 90 degrees on the outside or the inside of the sitter. This is the tapering sled in action, and there is no safer way to make tapering cuts on the table saw than this one. For wider boards, I remove the toggle clamps jig and just use the T-track clamps only. In the end, I have enjoyed making this simple sled and saved myself around $200, which I could have spent on the Incromiter 5000 sled by using only the miter gauge with some available accessories. If you made it this far in this video, I would love to have you on board by subscribing to my channel, as more exciting projects are on the way. Thank you for watching and happy woodworking.